Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're diving into something absolutely fascinating. We aren't just going to memorize a piece of human anatomy, we're going to uncover a literally life-saving piece of biological engineering. We're looking at a built-in failsafe that's sitting quietly in your chest right now, just waiting for the day it might need to activate. Yep, we're talking about the Azygos vein, the body's ultimate emergency detour. So let's start by imagining a really high-stakes clinical scenario. You know the superior vena cava, right? That massive blood vessel responsible for bringing all the deoxygenated blood from the upper half of your body straight back down into your heart. Well, what happens if that primary highway gets completely blocked? I mean, in a city, a blocked major highway means total gridlock and disaster. But the human body? It actually has an astonishing hidden superpower to deal with exactly this kind of crisis. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack. Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for exploring this physiological safety net. First, we'll officially meet the azygos vein. Second, we'll map its exact venous route. Third, we'll introduce its left-sided sidekicks. Fourth, we'll break down its tributaries. And finally, we'll arrive at that ultimate backup plan. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, meet the azygos vein, the solo venous highway. When we think of human anatomy, we usually think in pairs, don't we? A right lung and a left lung, a right kidney and a left kidney. But the Azygos system totally breaks that rule. In fact, the name itself comes from Greek, literally translating to single or without a companion. It's a true solo player, running right up the right side of the vertebral column, totally functioning without an identical twin on the left. So what's its normal day job? Well, under everyday circumstances, the azygos vein is just busy draining venous, deoxygenated blood from the thoracic wall and that upper lumbar region. It usually forms right around the T12 vertebra, often where the right subcostal and ascending lumbar veins unite. But structurally, the biggest takeaway here is that it acts as a direct vertical bridge connecting the lower body's main vein, the inferior vena cava, all the way to the upper body's main vein, the superior vena cava. It's also equipped with valves, and honestly, it can look pretty tortuous or twisted as it navigates up the posterior wall of your chest. Moving right along to Section 2, mapping the venous route, the journey to the heart. Let's trace how this journey builds step by step. First, it forms down in the abdomen and immediately heads up, slipping into the chest through the aortic opening of the diaphragm. Second, it ascends straight up the posterior mediastinum, sitting just in front of the lower 8 thoracic vertebrae. Third, it keeps traveling vertically until it hits a highly specific landmark, the T4 vertebrae. And fourth, this is its signature anatomical move. Right at T4, it suddenly arches forward, going directly over the root of the right lung. Finally, step 5, it terminates by opening right into the back of the superior vena cava, just before that vessel enters the heart's right atrium. It's brilliant how it sits right there on the right side of the vertebral column. You can perfectly visualize its close relationship to the right lung and pleura. It sits just posterior to the esophagus and the right vagus nerve, quietly ascending until it makes that dramatic forward arch over the lung root to deliver its blood supply. Now, for Section 3, the left-sided sidekicks, the mirror image mechanics. Now, since the azygos is just a single vein hanging out on the right, you might be wondering, how does the left side of the thorax drain its blood? Well, it relies on two very distinct sidekicks. First up is the Hemiazygos vein. This guy handles the lower left part of the thorax. It ascends the left side of the spine until it hits the T8 vertebra. Then it takes a sharp right turn, crossing behind the aorta and thoracic duct to just dump everything into the main azygos vein. Then, taking care of the upper left thorax, we have the accessory Hemiazygos vein. This one actually starts higher up, descends down the left side, and remarkably, also stops at that T8 vertebra. Just like its partner, it takes a sharp right turn across the spine to empty into the azygos. Sometimes, these two sidekicks even merge together before making that crucial right turn. When you map out the whole drainage network, you see this really clear asymmetry. On the right, you've got the massive continuous column of the main azygos vein, and on the left, the hemiazygos coming up from below, and the accessory hemiazygos coming down from above. Both of them are navigating across the midline to feed all of that left-sided blood into the massive right-sided thoroughfare. It is just a beautifully organized, centralized drainage system. Which brings us to Section 4, tributaries and connections, feeding the main channel. So the azygos definitely isn't just a simple bypass pipe, it's a master drainage basin. First, it directly receives the lower 7 posterior intercostal veins on the right side. Then, the right superior intercostal vein, which is basically a union of the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th intercostals, drains right into it too. But it's not just doing the chest wall. It also drains vital organs. It's taking in the right bronchial veins from the lung tissue, esophageal veins, and pericardial veins from around the heart. Plus, as we just covered, it's taking on the entire left-sided hemiazygos system. The sheer volume of connections here is exactly what sets the stage for its hidden superpower. And finally, Section 5, the ultimate backup plan, the caval shunts. All right, this is where the dry anatomy transforms into a completely dynamic, high-stakes, life-saving mechanism. Think back to that clinical scenario we posed at the very beginning. What happens if the superior vena cava gets compressed or obstructed? This massive vessel is completely shut down. When that happens, the azygos system activates as the ultimate emergency detour. Because it's physically connected to both the upper and lower venous systems, it steps right up to keep the blood flowing and, quite literally, keep you alive. So the crucial point here is understanding exactly where that blockage happens, because the body is going to react in two vastly different ways. If the superior vena cava is obstructed above where the azygos vein joins it, the blood from your upper body simply reroutes. It travels down collateral pathways, enters the azygos vein, and uses that arch we talked about to dump safely into the right atrium, totally bypassing the blockage. In this specific scenario, the superficial veins on the chest rarely bulge out. But if the obstruction happens below the azygos opening, meaning the azygos cannot dump its blood into the heart either, the cava shunt activates, and this is wild. The blood literally reverses direction. It routes downwards through the azygos system, bypassing the chest completely, flowing all the way down to the inferior vena cava and the abdomen, which then carries it back up into the heart. When this intense downward detour happens, superficial veins on the front of the trunk are working major overtime, and a really prominent, bulging thoracoepigastric vein will appear right on the patient's abdomen. The visible evidence of this internal emergency is just striking. When a physician sees these prominent, tortuous veins bulging on the anterior abdominal wall, that thoracoepigastric vein practically mapping itself out under the skin, it's a massive clinical red flag. It instantly tells them that the superior vena cava is blocked low down, and the azygos system is frantically shunting blood down to the inferior vena cava to save the patient's life. To quote the medical literature perfectly here, it serves as the main collateral channel to shunt the blood from the upper half of the body to the inferior vena cava. It really is so much more than just a simple vein. It is an incredible piece of built-in redundancy, perfectly designed to reroute traffic during a physiological catastrophe. Honestly, the way the human body engineers solutions for disaster is nothing short of miraculous. The azygos vein just sits there every single day, quietly doing its job draining the thorax, but it is completely prepared to take on the massive burden of the entire upper body's blood flow at a moment's notice. It leaves us with a really fascinating thought. If the azygos is the body's hidden backup highway, what other anatomical fail-safes are quietly keeping you alive right now, just waiting for their moment to activate? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope you walk away today with a newfound appreciation for the incredible architecture of your own body.